During the 16 Days of Action 2022 campaign,
Gosa Girls on Fire and Tech Shack Tactical TV interview ordinary but outstanding women.
Hashtag I am every woman.
In our interviews, we honor outstanding businesswomen who have made a difference in their specific sphere of society to ladies who have overcome horrific gender-based violence incidences.
We believe in action, not activism.
Why are women continually cast as helpless victims?
Bystanders to their own fate, presuming that victimhood is a fait accompli. We are not simply deer in the headlights of gender-based violence.
We can and will stand up for ourselves.
We are not second-class citizens who need special days and men standing up for us.
We say no more.
Activism does not change the minds of predators.
Predators will always be predators, waiting in the dark to claim their victims. Standing on street corners with placards saying that we are against gender-based violence has and never alone make a difference. Take action now, not to be a victim, and be a strong woman. Do not put your trust in anybody else except yourself. Take the example from the strong women in these interviews and be a warrior. Hashtag victim no longer.
Danette Oxley here for Tech Shack Tactical TV and Gosa Girls on Fire for the 16 Days of Action for No Violence Against Women and Children. I'm here with Charlotte Law, a very impressive lady with a very impressive CV. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you for having me.
You are actually, you've been nominated by BuzzFeed as one of the 30 most fiercest women. You also was involved, which most of the South Africans know about, the Netflix series, The Most Hated Man on the Internet. Can you tell me a little bit about who Charlotte Law is? You have like 30 jobs. You've got some very interesting things on your CV. So please, if you can tell me, who are you?
Well, I guess I'm at my core, I'm somebody who really believes in causes and helping others. I would say that other-centrism, or centering your life around others, is the key to happiness. And I would say that persistence is the key to success. And so I kind of started out, fighting for civil rights, and then added on gay rights and animal rights, and now women's rights with the revenge porn issue. So that's kind of been my heart, throughout my life, is these various causes.
You've done a lot of stuff. Private Eye, backup singer for Elvis Band. What's up with that? Sorry.
Yeah, when I lived in Vegas, I had some very unusual jobs in Las Vegas. So I was a cab driver. I was a backup singer for an Elvis imitator. I was even a bodyguard for a prostitute at one point. So, which is funny because I'm only 5 feet tall, so I don't make a very good bodyguard. But somebody in my apartment complex needed help, and I offered to help for pay. So some odd jobs, yes.
So most people know you as, I would actually like to interview you on a twofold. So you're a can-do person, somebody that never gives up. And in the Netflix series, it doesn't really say, you look like a mother that had a cause, but you're much more than that. You stood up for your daughter, Kayla, and that is basically what we're talking about mostly today, and some of the other stuff. Tell me, what is the story with Kayla and the road with Hunter? He seems like an absolute monster. Can you tell us a little bit about the story and how you just never gave up? You were like a dog with a bone.
Yes. Well, my daughter had taken some pictures of herself with her cell phone, and it got full, so she sent them to her email to save them. One of the pictures was topless. She never had any intention of showing it to anyone. Then she was hacked, and after that, her topless picture, along with some clothed pictures of her, ended up on Hunter Moore's website, Is Anyone Up?, and along with her name, her city, and her social media link. And she found out when she was at her waitress job, and she was absolutely devastated and in tears. And she called me, and I had never heard of revenge porn before. So I went on the internet, I looked at the site, I saw how horrible it was. It wasn't really about pornography. It was about ruining lives. It was about trying to get people fired. It was about trying to drive people to suicide, about bullying. So, under the pictures of various women, there would be these really mean-spirited comments calling them fat or ugly, or saying one breast is bigger than the other, and, picking apart their bodies. And So, my daughter was distraught over it, came home, and, she just didn't have the ability to fight, which I have since learned most victims can't fight for themselves. They are just too, feel too violated and too humiliated, and they just kind of close in on themselves. And so I knew I had to get that picture down because I know enough about the internet to know that a picture like that will spread. It's not going to just disappear. And so I began my mission that way.
There's I think there's an argument if it's a Jewish or a Catholic saying is, if you take a feather cushion and you cut it and you shake the feathers out, they basically go into the wind. You can never get those feathers back. And that's basically, it made me think about Kayla's story and some of the other ladies that I spoke to story. If it's on the internet, people take screenshots, you never get rid of it.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good analogy, the pillow. Very good.
So your husband got the pictures taken down, but you didn't let it go.
So first I sent Hunter just a request because he was violating copyright law, and but he didn't care, and he never cared about taking down pictures. He always refused. And so then I started calling everyone associated with him, his attorney, his publicist, some of his advertisers. I even tried to call his mom, thinking she could possibly do something. And I found her old workplace, but she no longer worked there. And my daughter initially didn't want me to tell my husband, who was an attorney. So I was trying to do this, all myself. And then eventually we went to the police. I ended up contacting the FBI. And then my husband got involved finally and had a conversation with Hunter's attorney, and her picture came down.
But you didn't leave it there. His attorney also basically resigned from being his attorney, I think, as far as I can gather. But there was 40 other victims that you got within a 2-week period. Am I correct?
Yeah. So what happened was, my daughter had been hacked. And when she went on the site and looked at other women on the site, she saw someone she knew. So she called this person, and this person said she had also been hacked. And so my thought was, well, I only know 2 people on this website and both were hacked. So maybe there's a hacking scheme. So I decided to do my own little study. And so I contacted 40 people who had been posted within a 14-day period of my daughter to find out how they got on the site. And it was very hard because I didn't want to use email or social media or any kind of technology because I was scared there was a hacker on there. So everything had to be done by the phone. So sometimes I only had their name and the city they lived in, and I would be calling people with the same last name saying, are you related to this person? Could you have her call me? So eventually, when I finished my study, I found out that 40% of the 40 had been hacked. And I also knew that some of them had been hacked by the same hacker as my daughter because he was leaving an email behind. And so I was able to give this information. I had like a 12-inch file on this guy by the time I got finished on the website owner. And I was able to give this information to the FBI, who originally didn't want to take the case. But luckily they did. And that's really how he was brought down.
Because they could only get him on the hacking, they didn't get him on copyright or on the cyber side. They got him on the hacking. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, that was really the only avenue we had because there were no laws against revenge porn at the time. And copyright law is normally a civil suit. And this website owner had no assets. So he didn't care about civil suits. In fact, one other guy sued him for like $250,000. He never even showed up in court. He just didn't care. So we knew that that wasn't really going to do anything. But hacking, of course, is a federal crime. And that was the avenue that we could take to get him imprisoned. And
have you been involved in changing any laws, and have any laws changed in and around this?
Yeah, so originally my state, California, I worked with Senator Anthony Canella's office, who's a state senator, and he brought forth a law in California. So we were the first state to have a full-on anti-revenge porn law. And then I just kind of started helping other legislators in other states. So now we have 48 states with laws against revenge porn. There are 2 that don't, which is Massachusetts and South Carolina. And we've been trying to get a federal law in place for at least 8 years, and it fails mainly because we have, a lot of pushback from the ACLU. And so it's just very, very hard getting a federal law passed. There's a new one that was just introduced called the PROTECT Act, which the language is very similar to what the actual porn industry had to adhere to for the past 30 years, which basically says that you have to have some kind of consent form and an ID on file for anyone who's depicted as nude or topless. So that's kind of what the language is like, and that the websites have 72 hours to remove any content that doesn't have that, consent form and identification.
Okay, so there's at least some progress on that front.
We're trying. We're trying to, but we've definitely had progress with the states, even though many of the laws are misdemeanors and they're not strong enough. And it's very hard to prosecute because with a misdemeanor, you can't even get a subpoena to check technology. It's only if it's a felony. So it's very, very hard to even investigate, violations of the law.
So over the last 2 weeks, I'm interviewing about 32 ladies all over the world, including a lot of them are out of South Africa. Our laws are not great. Our police is not great. And I must actually go and follow up and see if we've got anything in that line. One of my friends he actually works very much also with the FBI, with the BAU unit, because we have the most serial killers, serial rapists, I think a lot more than anywhere else in the world. I think he's personally dealt with 110 cases. So South Africa's laws are not great. So I must actually go and find out what's happening, because I've spoken to a beauty queen recently, and she's been cyberbullied terribly. And they've also released her name and her address and where she works. So they've been doing a similar thing to her as well. So
wow.
Tell me, who is this Hunter Moore? He seems like an absolute monster. He went to jail for about only 4 years. Where is he now? What's happening with him?
Yeah, he didn't even go to jail for 4 years. He was originally sentenced with 2.5 years, and he went to prison for less than that because of so-called good behavior. And it wasn't really much of a prison. It was more like a summer camp, like an alcohol and drug rehab center where he could go up to the store without supervision and just come back. And so it was, very, very light type of situation. But he's back on social media. He's on certain social media sites. I understand he's on TikTok and a few others. And his mindset hasn't changed. He's never apologized. He blames everyone except himself. He blames the hacker that he paid. He blames his attorney. He probably blames me. And he's got the same mindset, which is he believes that if you tear other people down, somehow it's going to build him up. And he must be a very miserable, unhappy person, is what I assume, because that's not a very good, philosophy to live by.
Absolutely. Why did you think he had such a large following? I know, if you have a look on a personal level, I can see people, what we call keyboard warriors, people that's anonymous, and they can basically say and do whatever they want on the internet or on social media.
Well, I think a lot of them are people who hate women. he had a cult essentially with 600,000 followers on Twitter. Wow. And these people were, they were sending me death threats. They sent me computer viruses. I even had a stalker at my house. It was like this Charles Manson type of cult where Hunter was the father and the followers were the children, and they called themselves the family. And people would post things like, "I would kill for you, father. Tell me what to do." So it was very scary when you get death threats from these anonymous people, because you don't know who they are. You don't know if they're just out of prison. You don't have any idea who these people are. So so absolutely, when people are anonymous on the internet, I think they feel more freedom to be mean-spirited and to attack others. And it became kind of a game. It was kind of like, oh, this is fun, this is a hobby for us, just beating up on other people. And I assume they're mostly people who have that same mindset that Hunter has, that if you tear other people down, it's going to make you feel better about your sad little life. I have to assume. But most of the perpetrators I've run into who engage in this distribution of revenge porn tend to be guys between, say, age 20 and 40. And a lot of times they live at home with their parents. So I think they do have very sad lives.
He seemed to have a sad life. If you actually have a look, he was still staying with his parents when he got raided by the FBI. Am I correct?
Yes, and he still is. He's back living with his parents again. And he's 36 years old now.
And the parents do nothing. I can't understand that. They know what kind of person he is, and they do nothing.
Yeah, I've never met, well, I saw his parents in court, but I've never spoken with them, so I don't know anything about them. But I have heard some people call them enablers. So
absolutely,
that's all I know.
Yeah, as I said, I had a long discussion with a lady that today, and she says the big thing is you don't know who the person is that's giving you the threats. So you never knew, if somebody bullies you face to face, you know who that person is. But over the internet, you don't know who you're dealing with, what mental state that person is in, etc., etc. So yeah, it's not nice. So it's a new world from when I grew up. In any case,
it is. It's completely different, and it can be very scary. When you just don't have any idea.
How are you doing, and how's Kayla doing? Is she doing better? Getting on with her life?
My daughter's doing a lot better. She originally wasn't going to be in the docuseries at all. She had said no all the way till the last day of filming. And then she said, okay, I'll do a half a day. And so they filmed her for half a day. And so she was in it. And the reason why is she just had this back off because she felt like it was going to hurt her real estate career. She's a successful agent. And she was, fearful that her clients would not want to work with her because of her having a topless picture on the internet. And so, but now she understands the importance of the cause, and she's kind of leaning into it more, and is, a little more public about it and willing to discuss it. And so she's doing much better. And she got married about 3-4 months ago.
So I'll say congratulations.
Yes.
He basically, Hunter says that 40% or something like that, he says he was asked for the Netflix series, but he didn't agree to it. And he said it's all BS. What do you say about that? Narcissist?
Well, that's what he says, but he's false. I mean, he says a lot of things that are not true. So, you really can't ever believe anything he says. So he didn't want to be in it, I think, because, he hasn't changed his mindset. And I think that, what was he going to say? He's going to go on there and say, yeah, it was great. I love doing it. I should have gone 10 times harder. That's what he says now. The only thing he regrets is not going 10 times harder. I don't know what that means, but that's what he says. So what are you going to say if they're doing a documentary and you haven't changed your view? It's going to make you look bad. So I can see why he didn't do it, but I'm glad he didn't, because originally they were going to center the production around him. And so it would have been glorifying him. It would have made him, 100 more, 100 more. And instead they centered it around the victims. And I think that's much better.
Anonymous was quite interesting what they did to him. That guy put a smile on my face.
Yes. Yeah. So what happened is Hunter, at one point when the FBI were closing in on him essentially, and he knew that, he sold his website for a small amount of money to somebody, or not the website, but he sold the domain. And then later he started saying, I'm going to bring it all back. I'm going to bring back all the same content, except it's going to be worse, because I'm going to bring back the victims' addresses along with driving directions on how to get to their houses. And that prompted me to put his home address on Twitter. So I got tons of backlash from his followers and even from him. And then when all that was happening, all this craziness, and then the stalker came to my house, I mean, all these things were happening at the same time. That's when I was contacted by the underground group Anonymous, who said, don't worry, we're going to protect you, and we're going after him tomorrow. And I didn't even know if it was a practical joke at first, but they went after him, and they doxed him by putting his personal info out there. They sent him like 200 dildos. They got him declared officially dead in the state of California, apparently. And so he was very quiet after that, because he was extremely scared of Anonymous. So
Yes.
it's like you didn't hear a peep from him.
Tell me, I actually wanted to ask you about your books, especially The Devil in the Basement. It's based on your dad. A very interesting story. Just caught
Yes.
my eye.
Yeah, it's actually my grandfather. And
Grandfather.
yeah, so I was adopted at birth and into a really abusive, tragic childhood family. My adoptive father was verbally abusive. My mom committed suicide when I was 16, but she didn't actually die right away. She was semi-conscious in a convalescent home for 10 years. And so she could only like move one side of her body, and she slurred her words, and her memory was pretty much gone. And then my brother was killed 2 years later in a car accident, my adoptive brother. And so I always wanted to find my birth family. And I did track them down in my 20s. And I also learned about my grandfather, who had been killed by a devil worshiper in 1948, which was a fascinating story. I mean, just amazing. And so I ended up writing a book, Devil in the Basement, about his life and about the murder. And it wasn't just a murder of my grandfather, but the devil worshiper killed his wife. He killed my grandfather. He killed himself, and he set off 2 bombs in a small town in West Virginia. And
Is it available on Amazon?
It is. Yes, it is.
I will definitely make a effort to actually read it. It sounds very, very interesting. You also
Yes.
wrote a lot of other books: Meet the Stars, Rebel in High Heels, Armed for Ideological Warfare, and Undercover Debutantes. So you're a very busy lady. I've never. I do a lot of things myself. For Girls on Fire, it's basically on a voluntary basis, but you definitely do more than I do.
Well, I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and you're bringing light to very important issues and supporting women and girls and children. And, so I think what you're doing is really important. And I give you, kudos for that.
Now, we believe in action and not activism. So they always, I think we started in 2015, around the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. And I decided it's not going to help for people to say, please don't do this, because they're not going to listen to you. It's you have to do action, and it's actually action starts at the person itself that's involved in the victim as a victim. We live in an extremely violent society in South Africa. I had my most difficult interview yesterday. A lady's husband was killed on the 13th of October with a home invasion. And that's the thing is, it's an everyday story and nobody speaks about it. The husband was just another statistics because there's so many murders and home invasions, etc. And it's only been a month and a half. She's absolutely broken. He was the love of her life. And but she's decided to speak up and say no more. And that's what's so interesting for me about your story is you decided not to stop. You went for it and you took action and didn't stop fighting until you couldn't fight anymore, when it basically ended when you got a result. So I've got such admiration for you. So hopefully our campaigns, I will definitely send links to all of your campaigns and stuff like that. But thank you very much for talking to me. It was absolutely lovely.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks very much and have a good day.
I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down. You can't break me. I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard. We'll stand together. I'm a girl on fire.